Our top story tonight is about Ukraine. Its war with Russia has reached a bad place. After nearly 3 years of relentless Russian assaults, the front line of this war-torn country is on the brink of collapse. Daily, Ukrainian forces are losing ground to Russian attacks. Servicemen are breaking ranks over calls to continue fighting, and soldiers are abandoning the front lines. Now, facing setbacks, desertions, and the prospect of a potential settlement with Russia that could be influenced by Donald Trump, Ukraine has decided to hold its military commanders accountable. In the latest developments, 2 generals and a colonel have been held responsible for the loss of territory in eastern Ukraine, areas that were captured by Russian forces last spring. This action comes as public pressure mounts in Ukraine against its military leadership. Ukraine Security Service, known as the SBU, announced that the 3 former commanders, 2 generals and 1 colonel, have been accused of failing to protect Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine from the advances of Russian forces. The SBU did not disclose the names of those detained, but shared their ranks in the units they commanded at the time. The former Ukrainian commanders are accused of failing to build adequate fortifications and properly equip defense positions. Moreover, they're charged with making other mistakes that led to Russia seizing a significant portion of Ukrainian territory where fierce fighting is currently underway. As mentioned earlier, their arrests come amid growing public pressure for action against commanders seen as incompetent or careless. Desertions have been rising in the Ukrainian army, with soldiers fleeing from the war. In fact, those who leave their units without permission often cite disagreements with their commanders as the key reason for their departure. The unnamed Ukrainian colonel is under scrutiny for the actions of 12 soldiers in his battalion who reportedly left their posts. Separately, the commander of Ukraine's 155th Brigade has been arrested because a large number of his brigade members went absent without leave. This at a time when Ukraine was already going through a manpower shortage amid fierce fighting with the Russians. But that's not all. Ukraine is also grappling with corruption within its military ranks. Time and again, reports have surfaced of widespread bribery among military officials, especially medical commissioners, who have the authority to grant draft exemptions. The SBU announced the arrest of the country's chief military psychiatrist, revealing that he had accumulated over $1 million since the onset of the war. His assets include several properties and 4 BMWs. The commanders accused of crimes could face prison sentences of up to 10 years, with the SBU indicating its intention to seek pre-trial detention for those arrested as a preventive measure. We're not surprised. Just look at the number of news reports talking about low morale among Ukrainian soldiers. There's also been an increase in reports of troops either fleeing the conflict or going completely absent without official leave. Many soldiers have expressed that their commanding officers are sending them into situations where their chances of survival are minimal. A term often used to explain the situation is called meat grinder. Meat grinder, a term that has become synonymous with Ukraine war. Meanwhile, during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a pitch for Europe, asking it to remain strong and united amidst changing US leadership.
And we need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as it truly needed, not just as much as they have gotten used to during years of neglect. If it takes 5% of GDP to cover defense, then so be it.
Now, that speech came following the swearing-in of Donald Trump as U.S. president. Remember, Trump has been pushing for settlement of the Ukraine war. He has been extremely critical of former President Biden for supplying military aid to Ukraine. Let's not forget his pre-poll promise of ending the Ukraine war. Just yesterday, he took an unusually critical stance on the Kremlin, threatening Russia with sanctions if it refuses to engage in talks on settling the Ukraine war. Trump has said he would meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the details are being arranged for the same. During a press briefing, he said, and I'm quoting here, "The war between Ukraine and Russia should have never started." When reminded that he had promised to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of being in office, he jokingly replied, I'm quoting again, "I have another half day left. We'll see. We want to get it done." As far as Ukraine is concerned, Trump said Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has told him he wants to make a deal. Recent comments from Kyiv have showed that they are open to diplomacy provided it creates a sustainable end to the war. And Zelensky had welcomed Trump's inauguration, calling the U.S. president a strong man. But Trump's assertion that he wants to meet Putin suggests Trump is confident that he may be able to forge a diplomatic path. In fact, his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has also said that Trump will begin working on a ceasefire agreement for Ukraine, quote-unquote, almost immediately. Speaking to reporters soon after being confirmed by the Senate, the new U.S. Secretary of State said that Ukraine will be the top priority for Trump and that the war needs to end. Rubio insisted that both Ukraine and Russia will have to concede something as part of any deal, without elaborating on what such concessions would look like. Question is, either sides in any mood to concede? We'll have to wait and watch. That being said, U.S. President Donald Trump has appointed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. During his inaugural press conference, President Trump emphasized his commitment to tackling chronic illnesses as part of the Make America Healthy Again campaign spearheaded by Kennedy. While the slogan has gained traction, experts argue that many of Kennedy's proposals are rooted in conspiracy theories and misinformation, raising concerns about their potential to improve Americans' health conditions. Kennedy has previously criticized the Food and Drug Administration. He called it a corrupt system and accused it of waging a war on public health. The 71-year-old has pledged to dismantle entire departments within the FDA, hinting layoffs for over 18,000 employees. In the past, he's also spoken out against ingredients that hurt Americans' health. This includes dyes in Fruit Loops cereal to seed oils in chicken nuggets, among others. He's also advocated for eliminating ultra-processed food products, altered to include added fats, starches, and sugars like frozen pizzas, crisps, and sugary breakfast cereals that are linked to health problems like cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes. As the son of Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of former President John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. brings a legacy of public service. Having spent the early part of his career as an environmental lawyer, it remains to be seen whether he can effectively translate his ambitions into actionable reforms in his new role. Now, the inauguration ceremony for U.S. President Donald Trump was also in a way fashion's best day, with attendees putting their best foot forward. From Melania Trump's striking hat to Usha Vance's statement overcoat to dapper suits donned by billionaire founders, you name it. But if fashion faux pas had a face that day, as per many, it's none other than Lauren Sanchez, a former journalist, who is also, by the way, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' fiancée, who faced criticism for her choice of outfit at the event. What went wrong? At the event, Sanchez was seen wearing a white blazer and trousers, nothing unusual. However, a lacy corset that she wore underneath that blazer, that became a talking point. and not for the right reasons, unfortunately. Taking to social media, netizens had quite a lot to share, with some calling her clothing choice inappropriate for a formal occasion such as the president's swearing in, while others even questioned her presence at the event altogether. As far as Sanchez is concerned, she's remained indifferent to these comments. All things said and done, fashion is a choice, and while opinions are welcome, it's really upon the wearer what they can pull off with both comfort and confidence.